Golden buzzer hit instantly for Hotel California performance. The lights were blinding, the audience restless, and the judges seated with the usual blend of expectation and skepticism. Suddenly, a thin boy in worn-out clothes stepped onto the stage, his small frame looking almost swallowed by the vastness of it. His eyes darted nervously, his fingers twitching at the edge of the microphone stand. He didn't belong there, at least, that's what everyone thought at first glance. He looked too fragile, too quiet, too ordinary to create a moment that would be remembered for years. But what no one saw was the fire that lived inside him, a fire that had been burning since the first day he ever heard his father hum along to an old radio playing Hotel California. The boy's name was Miguel. He was just 13, from a poor fishing village where dreams often died young. His mother worked as a laundress, his father had passed away years before, and Miguel spent most of his childhood singing in the streets to earn coins that helped put rice on the family's table. Every night, after long days of collecting bottles or selling small trinkets, he would sit near the shoreline, gazing at the waves and whispering to himself that one day, his voice would carry beyond the sea, that people far away would listen, and maybe then life would change. He clung to that dream as tightly as a child could, because without it, there was nothing but hunger and silence. When he walked on stage, Miguel knew he wasn't just singing for himself. He was singing for his mother, who sewed late into the night. He was singing for his little sister, who often went to bed hungry but still smiled at him with hope in her eyes. He was singing for his father, whose memory lingered in that one song they used to listen to together. But most of all, he was singing to prove that even the poorest boy from the smallest place could still touch the hearts of strangers if given just one chance. The first chord played, and Miguel closed his eyes. Then, with trembling lips, he began. His voice was soft at first, shaky with nerves, but within seconds it carried a strength that silenced the audience. There was a rawness in his tone, a depth of emotion that no training could ever teach. His voice wasn't polished, but it was real, filled with pain, longing, and a soul too old for his years. The room grew still. Every judge leaned forward, every spectator stopped breathing for just a moment. And then, something magical happened. Before he even finished the first verse, one of the judges slammed the golden buzzer. Confetti burst from above, the music stopped, and the crowd erupted into cheers and tears. For Miguel, it was like time froze. He stood there, trembling, as golden light rained over him, and for the first time in his life, he felt seen. He felt like he belonged. But behind that shining moment was a long story of struggle. Miguel had almost not made it to the audition. He couldn't afford the bus ticket to the city, and his mother had sold her only good dress to scrape together enough money. Even then, Miguel considered backing out. He was terrified of failing, of being laughed at for his simple clothes and his trembling voice. He remembered sitting outside the audition hall, clutching a piece of bread his mother had packed for him, and whispering a prayer. He almost walked away, but a stranger smiled at him, told him he looked nervous, and gave him a bottle of water. That small kindness gave him the courage to step inside. That decision changed everything. The challenges didn't end with the golden buzzer moment. Fame came quickly, but so did doubt. People questioned if he was just a one-song wonder, if his story was more powerful than his voice. Critics called him a charity case, rather than a true star. Miguel, still just a boy, carried the weight of expectation on his thin shoulders. He often lay awake at night, wondering if the world would forget him once the glitter of that golden confetti faded. But each time he felt that fear, he remembered his family's sacrifices, the nights of hunger, and the sound of waves carrying his dreams across the sea. He practiced harder, pushed himself further, and learned to sing not just with his voice but with every scar and memory carved into his soul. As weeks turned into months, Miguel continued his journey on the show. He sang songs that told stories of resilience, love, and heartbreak. He cried on stage, laughed with the audience, and grew stronger with every performance. The judges saw him transform, not into someone new, but into who he truly was meant to be, a storyteller through music. Fans around the world wrote letters, sent messages, and shared their own stories of struggle, saying that Miguel's voice gave them hope. His pain became a bridge connecting millions of hearts. When the final night arrived, Miguel didn't win the competition. Another act took the trophy, but Miguel had already won something far greater. He won the love of people across the world, opportunities to sing beyond that stage, and the chance to lift his family from poverty. When he returned home to his village, people lined the streets, holding candles and singing along with him. For them, he was not just a boy who sang Hotel California. He was proof that dreams could survive, even in the harshest of places. He was a reminder that poverty did not define talent, and that courage could rewrite destiny. Years later, Miguel would still look back at that single golden buzzer moment. He would remember the sound of the button being hit, the golden rain falling, and the tears in the eyes of strangers who suddenly believed in him. He would tell his story to children in his village, urging them never to give up, no matter how poor, how small, or how scared they felt. And he would remind them of the lesson he had learned on that stage, that talent can come from anywhere, that voices cannot be silenced by poverty, and that the world listens when someone dares to sing from the soul. Answer: what began as a boy's trembling performance of Hotel California became more than a song. It became a story of hope, of struggle, and of victory against the odds. A story that proves golden buzzers aren't just for talent, but for courage. And sometimes, the poorest boy with the rawest voice can shake the world more deeply than the most polished star. Miguel was not born into a life of privilege. His home was a small bamboo shack by the shore, patched together with old tarps to keep the rain from pouring inside. Nights were often cold and filled with the howling sound of wind rushing through holes in the walls. The family shared one mattress, and when storms struck, they huddled together, praying the fragile house would not collapse. His mother, Aling Rosa, carried the burden of survival every day. With her hands swollen from washing clothes for neighbors, and her back bent from years of carrying water and firewood, she still managed to smile at Miguel and his little sister, Maria, whispering, "One day, Anak, things will be better. Hold on to your dreams." Music became Miguel's refuge. He had no toys, no gadgets, no books of his own. But his father, before passing away, had left behind a battered old guitar. Its strings were rusted, its wood cracked, but Miguel treated it like a treasure. He didn't know how to play at first, but he would watch older boys strum and imitate their fingers until slowly, painfully, he learned. That guitar, though broken, became his best friend. Sitting by the seashore, with salt in the air and stars glittering above, Miguel would strum chords and sing quietly to himself. The waves always listened, and he imagined they carried his voice to faraway places. His favorite song was always Hotel California. Something about its haunting melody and mysterious lyrics felt like his own life, trapped in struggles, but yearning for freedom. It was a local teacher, Miss Clara, who first noticed Miguel's voice. She heard him singing while cleaning classrooms one evening. She stopped in her tracks, stunned by the richness of his tone. She encouraged him to join school contests, but Miguel was always hesitant. His classmates teased him for his ragged clothes and calloused hands. But Miss Clara insisted, telling him, "The world needs to hear your voice, Miguel. Don't hide it." With her gentle push, he started joining small-town competitions, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, but always gaining courage. The prize money, though small, helped buy extra rice for his family. That was when he realized, singing wasn't just a dream, it was a way of survival. When the talent show auditions were announced in the capital, Miguel's heart pounded with excitement and fear. He wanted to try, but how could he? The bus fare alone was more than his family could afford. Days went by, and he tried to bury the dream, convincing himself it was impossible. But one night, as they sat for dinner with nothing but salt and water on their rice, his mother placed her hand on his shoulder. "Take this chance," she whispered. "Don't let it pass." The next morning, she sold her best possession, an old sewing machine her husband had given her years before. The money was barely enough for travel, but it meant Miguel could go. Tears stung his eyes as he hugged her goodbye, promising, "I'll make you proud, Ma." The bus ride to the city was long and uncomfortable. Miguel carried a small bag with a change of clothes, his father's guitar, and a packet of bread his mother had given him. He pressed his forehead against the window, staring at the passing fields, villages, and eventually the tall buildings of the city. It was overwhelming, so different from his quiet hometown. At the audition venue, hundreds of contestants crowded the halls, dressed in flashy clothes, carrying expensive instruments, speaking confidently into cameras. Miguel felt smaller than ever. He sat in a corner, clutching his guitar, doubting himself. For a moment, he considered leaving, but then he remembered his mother's words, his sister's hopeful eyes, and the sacrifices that brought him there. He swallowed his fear and stayed. Backstage, Miguel's hands trembled as he tuned his guitar. He could hear the roars of the audience, the loud voices of the hosts, the laughter and chatter of contestants. His chest tightened, but he forced himself to breathe. "This is my chance," he whispered. "This is for Ma." When his name was called, he walked onto the stage, each step heavy with fear. The bright lights hit him, making it hard to see the audience. The judges looked at him with polite but skeptical expressions, noting his worn-out clothes and shy demeanor. One judge asked, "What will you be singing?" Miguel took a deep breath and said softly, "Hotel California." Some in the audience chuckled. How could this boy possibly do justice to such a legendary song? The music started. Miguel closed his eyes, strummed the first chord, and began to sing. The first note was shaky, but then something shifted. His voice, filled with raw emotion, poured into the microphone. The room grew still. His tone was haunting, deep yet tender, carrying years of struggle and longing. He sang as if the song was his story, as if every lyric was drawn from his own life. People stopped whispering. The judges leaned in, stunned by the unexpected power of his performance. By the time he reached the chorus, the audience was already in tears. And then, it happened. One judge, unable to hold back emotion, slammed the golden buzzer before Miguel even finished the song. The crowd erupted. Golden confetti rained down, showering the trembling boy in light. Miguel froze, eyes wide, as the stage transformed into a dream. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed by tears, clutching his guitar as the world cheered for him. For the first time, he wasn't just a poor boy from the shore. He was an artist, a voice that demanded to be heard. Backstage, the judges embraced him, telling him he had a gift the world needed. Interviewers rushed to him, cameras flashing, fans already screaming his name. But Miguel's thoughts went straight to his mother and sister. "They'll see this," he whispered. "They'll know it was worth it." The golden buzzer wasn't the end of his journey, it was the beginning. Overnight, Miguel became a sensation. Videos of his performance spread across social media, reaching millions worldwide. Strangers sent messages, saying his voice healed their hearts, inspired them to keep going. Yet with fame came pressure. Some people mocked him, saying his story of poverty was what made him famous, not his voice. Others doubted if he could handle bigger songs. Miguel felt the weight of expectation. Nights of rehearsals left his voice strained, and sometimes he cried alone, fearing he wasn't good enough. But each time he felt weak, he remembered his mother's sacrifice, his sister's smile, and his father's memory. Those became his strength. Week after week, Miguel returned to the stage, singing not for fame, but for the boy he used to be, the one sitting by the sea, dreaming. He poured his soul into every lyric, every note. And though he didn't win the final trophy, he won something greater, the hearts of millions, the respect of judges, and the chance to lift his family out of poverty. When he returned to his village, the people welcomed him as a hero. Children ran to him, villages cheered, and his mother cried as she hugged him. "You did it, Anak," she whispered. "Your voice reached the world." Years later, Miguel continued to sing, not just on grand stages, but also in small places where people needed hope. He built a music school for children like him, giving them opportunities he never had. He told his story often, reminding them that courage, not circumstance, defines destiny. And he always ended with the same words: "That golden buzzer wasn't just for me. It was for every child who dares to dream, no matter how impossible it seems." And so, Miguel's story became more than a performance. It became a living testimony that even the smallest voice, when sung with truth and courage, can shake the world. And so, the boy who once sang to the sea with a broken guitar became the voice that touched millions around the world. Miguel's journey was not just about a golden buzzer, or even about Hotel California. It was about courage. It was about holding on to a dream when the world gave you every reason to let it go. It was about a mother's sacrifice, a sister's hope, and a boy's belief that his voice could rise above poverty, above pain, above doubt. The confetti may have fallen that night, but what truly mattered was what rose from it: faith, hope, and proof that dreams are never too far for those who dare to chase them. Miguel's story reminds us that greatness doesn't come from where you are born, but from how far your heart is willing to reach. And whenever the world doubts you, whenever you feel small, remember Miguel. Remember the boy who sang from his soul and turned struggle into song. For in the end, it wasn't just about music. It was about showing the world that, even in the darkest places, voices of light will always be heard.